Today, my guest is Matthew Gibb, a seasoned professional from Australia. Matt is known for his passion, his expertise, and commitment to raising the bar in car care. Matt is also a trusted voice in the detailing community. Matt has helped countless of enthusiasts and professionals to perfect their craft. In this episode, you can expect to learn Matt's approach to paint correction, his favorite products, a few tips for beginners, his new line of polishing pads coming soon to the market, and his work behind the scenes and much more. Hope you enjoy this one.
You sound, is it Canadian?
I'm Canadian,
Or
yeah,
no?
from Quebec. So my
Yeah,
first
awesome.
my first language is French. I was born French Canadian, and I think maybe
Yeah.
like before I started my YouTube channel, my English was not very good. So it's a work in progress, like we say.
One of my best friends is here in Adelaide originally, and he's a lovely man, and I love Canadians, so it's all good.
So Matt, what would you say to a new guy that just got into detailing and is looking to go a step above and maybe polish his own car, but is maybe afraid or he's on the fence, is not sure? What would you recommend to anyone who's looking to get in the polishing stuff?
Yeah, sure. So look, there's a lot of options, but I would really recommend staying away initially from rotary polishers and force rotation, and look at probably a 12 millimeter orbit random orbital, or a 15, or even a 9 mil, and basically a good all round sort of a polish that's not too aggressive. Could be a one step polish product, or it could be like 3D1, that's sort of like, sort of a 3/4 strength compound and a polish in one. Something that's not stupidly aggressive, and it's going to give them a nice balance of good cut and very good finish, but not, massive cut. And just start with some foam, just with a foam pad or two, and just, do a small, medium sized area, and keep your speed to about three and a half, maybe four, um, and just do that, and just steadily get into it, and practice keeping the pads flat and a little bit of pressure on it, just a little bit, and not using too much product. Obviously, 2 to 4 drops. If
Hmm.
it's a spray, one spray, obviously. Stuff that's pretty much middle of the road, you know, not too big a orbit, not too aggressive pad, not too aggressive product, because you're not really going to do serious damage off the bat by going hardcore straight away. So it's a nice balance of cut finish and safety. That's what I recommend.
Okay. Would you say that a new guy can buy, like you said, a 9 millimeter or 8 millimeter polisher, like a basic stuff? Would you say that there's a real danger here if there's no real pressure, if you keep the polisher moving?
Yeah, keep it moving about half an inch a second to 3/4 of an inch a second. You can go faster, but yeah, something like Grio's Garage have got it in America. Have got is it G9. It's a 9 mil. That's probably one of the better ones. And at least with 8 mil, 9 mil, you're going to be able to get it into a lot of areas, and it's definitely going to have more performance or cutting ability than your typical sort of 3 mil, 5 mil random orbital machines, which generally are designed more for sanding and don't have enough power and enough. So yeah, a Grio's Garage G9, a Shine Mate 12 mil 5 inch, a Ripper if you want to, a Ripper's Duetto, anything like that. I mean, you can go to 15 mil orbit obviously as well, but that would work fine, I think.
Yeah, that's the one I
Some of
started
the,
with.
yeah, right.
It-
Some of the earlier 8 millimeter orbit machines were very vibrating. They were very, very unbalanced, and they just they were decent, but they'd basically make your hands itch all day if you use them too much. So they weren't the best. But some of the modern machines today are quite nice. I haven't used any of the Max Shine ones, but the Shine Mate ones are decent. They're quite nice for the money.
yeah, so I started myself with the Griot's G9. Is it 9 millimeter with a Lake
Yeah.
Country orange pad and
Yep.
a medium polisher, not medium polisher, medium compound, and keep the
Hmm.
polisher moving. No real problem. Did it by myself a long time ago. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned, those cheaper polisher, they vibrate like a jackhammer, so you
Yeah.
can get the tingling in your hands. So I sold that
Mm.
right away and jumped on. I actually bought a Rupes Mark 215 on Marketplace, maybe like half
Yeah.
price, and now I have
Awesome.
the
Yeah.
cordless. What's your thought on the cordless polisher?
The new one, the HLR series.
Yeah, well, I have this one, but in general, did you step away from the corded stuff?
No, I've still got all corded. I like cordless, but the battery technology is still not there yet. And I also my preference, and maybe this is a bit too far looking ahead, but it will happen. There's a company in New Zealand called Emrod who are working on wireless power transmission, like my hero Tesla used to do. And my preference one day would be to you plug in a little, like the thing you plug your USB cable in to charge your phone, put that into the power point, and as long as you're within 7 by 7 meter bay, you can power your polisher without batteries. That's the hope I have. But I haven't gone to cordless. The HLRs, I did test a 15.
Hmm.
My engineer, my buddy who's basically doing some engineering for me, who's a former engineer but also details cars on the side, he bought an HLR 15, and I was initially concerned about how it actually, when you're polishing and you just finish and you hit the trigger and turn it off, just the last second before it stops spinning, it locks up. That's a wireless. So that's a brushless motor thing. That's how they operate. But I found that it was a bit too vibrating at speed 5 and 6. Not that I use it at that speed much, but yeah, a little bit vibrating in that regard. I didn't like the size of the battery and how the ergonomics of the rear handle with that battery there. It's a bit awkward. Uh, so not the best. But look, for the money for a deluxe kit, it's a little bit much. It's a little bit not quite cutting the mustard. But I'm a very, very picky, finicky sort of anal dude that's expects a lot, and I respect the hell out of the Rupes engineers. Don't get me wrong, but I think they could do better. Uh,
Okay, good, fair point. I love mine. I don't think it's vibrating, but it depends on the pad you choose. But
yeah,
for me, the main point to get a
oh,
cordless polisher was the fact that I have a small garage. So when you have
yeah,
cords laying around, now I have tripods with the filming stuff. It just became a nightmare. So I had to
yeah,
choose one, and I have trust
yeah,
issues
sure,
when it comes to polishers.
yeah. So here's the other thing I forgot to mention too. Does your cordless Rupes HLR have speed setting? Have lag with this when you change speeds on the dial?
uh, I think Sandro in the Carcraft Auto Detailing YouTube channel explain it the best. So yeah, so when you're at speed 4, sometimes it'll feel different than like 15 minutes later. The speed 4 is going to be different.
Yeah,
It's like the computer, the chip is taking over, and that's the thing that choose the right speed. So
yeah,
sometimes if your battery is getting low, you can crank it to 5 or 6, and it keeps with just by the sound you can hear it's still the same that
mm,
speed 4. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
have to go ahead.
I was just going to, sorry, the thing I noticed with this one when it was fully charged, from going from speed 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, there was this really like almost a second delay when it was changing. So you'd be on 1, maybe 2, you went from 2 to 3, and you're waiting for like what seemed a lot longer than it should have. Now, I'm not an engineer, so my opinion on it's probably not that valuable, but I found it a little bit disappointing. I think personally, the other thing too is I think triggers and speed dials should basically go by the way of the dodo, because Fine and Germany got rid of their triggers with one of their models years ago, which I've got, which is an ultra low speed rotary, and it really improves the rear handle ergonomics, I find. But and obviously the plus minus buttons on the Metabo SXE 150 Sander or the Mercaderos is how I prefer to have my speed control done these days. You just go plus or minus on the top of the machine. There's no dials. There's no dial on the back of the machine. That's
Okay.
personal preference.
Yeah, sure. So I haven't tried them all. So yeah, they're expensive. I know Flex just came out with the gray version, so they're supposed to be 24
Mm,
volt. They look really interesting, but they're like at least $1,000 for two batteries, and they have so many batteries, it gets confusing, and you're I don't know. I like to keep it simple. But I was gonna
yeah,
ask Matt, how long did you have? You had a detailing business for a few years. Were you by
yeah.
yourself, and how long did you have it? And what's going on now?
Yeah, so basically, I started in '93, but as a hobbyist, as an enthusiast, we all start there. And obviously, went professional in 2000. But I started my own business in 2000, the end of 2006, after being disgruntled by the dealership I was working at. Really, just didn't give a crap for it was cars that were black that were covered in watermarks, and we said, look, this needs polishing. We've got to neutralise those water spots. We've got to polish them out. Oh, just deliver it in the shade or whatever where they can't see it. We don't care. So I said, bugger, I can't work for people. I can't work for people like that. So, started my own detailing business. And again, it wasn't easy. I certainly should have done a lot more research and got more training on the business side of it. But we had that for 13 years and had a couple of employees on and off in the last 5 or 6 years. And I also helped set up a shop in the US with a guy who found me on Detailing World, I think it was, and asked me to come over and help him out. But so I had that for 13 years and went from a double garage to basically a 1,000 square meter building, shared with my dad. And yeah, it was awesome and great setup, plenty of room, good showroom, and yeah, loved it. But now I just decided in 2019 the market was changing. I went from charging $500 to $3,000 depending on what service it was, to where people wanted that sort of level of quality, but wanted to pay far less than like a two or three stage paint correction was like I was charging 1,500 to like 2 or 3 grand like 18 years ago, 15 years ago, and people want that now for like under 1,000. I just can't do that. So I always knew that I had bigger fish to fry and had other things to do. So I thought, well, I'll try and do a bit of training and teach some people what I know and my mindset and philosophies. And I've always been a pad fanatic and thought, well, why not try and um, build on what I've started on back in 2014, where I wanted to lower my pad supply costs for the business. So I started searching for companies in Europe that were foam chemical manufacturers who also did the manufacturing and conversion of finished foam to pads or whatever. Found a couple and bought from them. And basically, a year ago, decided after coming out of hospital with a severe case of aplastic anemia, which is a bone marrow syndrome, that beating that I would find more companies and start with foam and then go on to try and push the boundaries of pad technology where I can. It won't be easy. It's a long term vision and it's something I'm passionate about. But yeah, I just want to give back to the industry where I can. So better pads and find any other solution based products that actually solve problems the industry might have.
Good, good, good. That's very interesting. So you close the business. You want to go above and beyond, and maybe go more on the technical side. Go deeper than just doing the polishing
The
day
cars.
in and day out.
Yeah. I mean, I love testing and I still do testing for manufacturers sometimes. But I always enjoy tinkering and going, what can I do? What can I come up with? What sort of different ways we can do services or what can I develop? I've developed a few things over the years that others were not offering or could not offer. But yeah, I just want to give back to the industry that's given me so much. I mean, I left high school with no idea what I wanted to do as a career. And a few years into just getting my first job, it was like, oh, I met a guy that was detailing my father's company cars, fleet of cars. Started talking to him, got him to do my cars, learn off of him. Started practicing, bought a rotary machine, and off I went. And the bug bit like mad, and it's still going. I'm still got the detailer's disease, as they
Yeah,
call it. So yeah, very
the
passionate.
fire,
So
the
the
fire.
fire, yes. As I said on the podcast last week with Alex, which will be up this week, I said this pad. basically Bruce Lee and Nikola Tesla are my heroes. And Bruce was born. Bruce died 5 or 6 months after I was born. So basically, the day I was born, they started. I think they started filming Into the Dragon, or were just in the first week of filming Into the Dragon. But my passion for this is what his was for martial arts. So it's an unquenchable fire.
That's very nice. Yeah, we
Mm.
just listening to you, I can tell. Um, so you eventually started your pad company.
Yeah.
When did you start that? And I believe you're like on the version 3 and you got the new stuff coming in. So you
Uh,
have your own
I'm
pads
work.
now.
If you've been looking for a new car soap for your maintenance washes, well, recently I've been enjoying quite a bit Labo Cosmetica Semper, a pH neutral product. Smells really good and cleans well. Very slick under your wash mitt. So go check it out on the houseofrags.com and use the coupon code DOGMA to save 10%.
Yeah. So October last year, after my last treatment for that syndrome was done. It was done in July, and my things started to improve, and platelet count was going up, and it wasn't dropping anymore. I decided, look, I'm going to go full bore into this, and I'll start this new thing. Obviously, Matt's Magic Detail Tech is the business name, Pad King is the brand name, and because that's what people used to call, my peers have called me over the years. You're the Pad King or the Pad Hoarder, and you know, people have called me a magician with a polisher before. Some of my customers, and then people call me the Gloss Guru. So I use that as the name of my blog. So
Okay.
it's like I'll just run with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
just run with it. So I'm working on generation 2 now. Some of the foams I've got now obviously will come and go, or I'll have them change the cell size or the density or something else. Add interface materials which they need, and I'm working on hopefully developing an all Australian new product that will hopefully. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to try anyway and see if it can actually replace merino wool as a cutting pad with that, because it's got some things about it are actually better than wool. It doesn't have the issues that some wools do, which is there's no lanolin, there's no barbs in it, or burrs, which cause scouring unless you've got a deburred wool pad. So I'm working on that and some synthetic fibers, and always looking for more foams and testing those and getting sheets of it. Had a meeting with the world's largest foam manufacturer on Friday with two people from that company, and just waiting for more samples. And I'm just going to keep looking, finding stuff, and then every generation I do is just going to get better and better and better. And I'm not ever saying I'm going to be competing or trying to take out Lake Country or Buff and Shine. That's not going to happen. But I'm trying to offer things that are outside the box if I can, or the current technology now. There might be current technology foam now, but they're still designed better, and get to the point one day where I can say, okay, Mr. Foam Company, whatever, one of my several or 8 or 9 I've got now, make me a custom foam no one's ever made before, and here's $25,000. Made me a 60-meter slab stock of something that does this and this and this. Now, maybe in 5 years or 10 years I'll get to do that. Maybe. But that's the goal anyway.
Okay, so your your latest product, because I know you sent me a message when we first spoke. That was about
Yep.
your green pad. So that's
Yeah,
your
the all
little
rounder.
baby right now.
Yeah, that's the one. I've got 1,000 of those coming in. So, and again, I started with an initial test batch just to see what just to test the waters of the market, see what people liked and didn't like. I had a lot of testers all over Australia, and one guy in North Carolina and a guy in Canada actually test for me, and they all said this green pad's really, really impressive. So that's the one I've been able to get in more stock of now because I sold the whole lot. Like I was expecting these things to sit around for a while, and they've just gone out the door. So the green one is I call it the green all rounder basically because it's basically my answer to a foam I found in 2014 when I found my second foam manufacturer company who also do robot covers and other textile wipes and things like that, impregnated wipes, who actually make the foam that everybody knows now as a very popular blue foam on the market. Everybody basically makes a version that's very similar. And basically mine will cut as much as that one or slightly more, but it's more thermally stable and it will actually finish better in most cases than that one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've basically had the 2 or 3 I've actually had for testing. I've now used for 60, 40 to 50 hours at least on all different machines, and they're a little bit worn, but they're still usable after all that time.
Okay. So you're obviously the best, the probably the best pad, the best selling pad would be like a Lake Country Blue HDO, or I believe
Yep.
Buff and Shine have a blueberry. So you
Yes, which
wanna
is again, they're both based on that. Well, basically, my understanding is that the guy that was working for the company in France told me that they had been to Lake Country and they had supplied them with that foam. So, because Lake Country probably may make their own foam, but I know that they buy a lot. They've bought a lot from other people, and maybe they've bought what they've already made, or they've had custom stuff made. And I respect the hell out of them for their engineering and what they've come up with over the years. And it's a damn good foam. At the time, I said, "Like this foam is amazing. It's like light cutting, heavy polishing, semi finishing in one pad, which is fantastic because most pads can only do one task. It's either
yeah.
light to heavy cutting, or it's intermediate polishing, or it's finishing, and nothing else. So it's a great pad, but I believe my greens are a little bit better
Okay, so
than that.
your pad is gonna be like a one-step cut finish altogether with a product such
Yeah,
as 3D1, and like
yeah.
that pad is gonna do our one step. Would you say that it'll be a durable pad?
Yeah, well, based on my testing and what my main tester here in Adelaide has done, who's done now probably 8 to 10 trucks with 6 pads, 6 green ones he bought, and they're still going.
Okay.
Yeah, very very durable. I mean, they do hold their the blue foam actually. When I got that in 2014, the only thing I noticed with it, the reason it finishes so well is it has very small sized cells or pores. So the smaller they are, obviously the better they finish. Generally, the larger they are, the more airflow you get, but also they do more scrubbing, but they might not quite finish as good as something with a smaller cell size. But very small cell size also means that if you use a bit too much product, you might clog the pad up, sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's very, very, very durable though. And obviously I've used it. I mean, again, I've tried to kill pads. I struggle. I've got pads in my collection for my business where they're 10 to 24 years old, have done 100 panels or even 100 cars, and they're still fine. They just
Okay.
don't. I just don't kill them. But that's probably because I'm just anal about cleanliness with it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, yeah. You swap your pads all the time. I guess you don't do a
yeah,
whole car with just
yeah.
one pad.
You can do it, like Ivan LaCroix, who I met back in May. He's a cool dude. You can, if with a pad wash you can do it, but I'd still rather cycle it out and change it. The one thing about using more pads is that you don't work each pad as hard, and you actually stay in the maximum cut and finish performance window by constantly changing them, cleaning. You use them, clean them, work them, clean them, work it, switch, go again. You're not going to be 4 or 5 panels into a car and going, "Oh, this thing won't cut anymore. It's gone too soft," or it doesn't seem to want to cut anymore. And then you go and clean it later, and you go, "Oh, it's caked in shit. It's caked in product." You think you've cleaned it out, but unless you've used a pad washer, literally like you can spray liquid and rub it and blow it with compressed air, but you'll still never get everything out. So eventually, it's going to get a bit loaded and softened, and it's not going to cut anymore.
So where are those pads? Where is your green pad is going to be available?
Yeah, so as I said, the plan is basically I started off initially with just purely um, offline, just word of mouth through people, just got started very small. I still am, but my goal is to get an online store called thepadking.com.au, obviously, which I've got the domains for. Basically set up, ready for the release of Generation 2, and people can go on there and order from there. And I am looking to eventually get into the New Zealand market via a guy who's a distributor for a particular chemical company or coating company, I think it is, or another guy who's got a distribution that does CarPro and other brands. So he's quite keen to try them when I get them in, which should be here in a few weeks, and see what he thinks. And if he likes them, yeah, they'll carry them, and I'll get more in. And
Okay.
yep, obviously keep making tweaks. And obviously, as far as US market and Canada, that's a long way down the track. But maybe eventually through some distributor of some sort. And maybe in Canada it could be the guys at Carzilla, or it could be someone else. But who knows? We'll see. It just depends on what I can develop and how good it can be, because I don't want to just sell anything. It's got to be doing something different, or something about it. It's like it's designed better, or it's does something that other ones don't do, or it's just something about it that actually is a bit of a. I hate to use the term too much, a game changer, or at least serious improvement on
Makes
what's
sense.
available now.
Of course, it has to be different or do something better. I agree 100%. And maybe we'll have them down the road on the Detailing Dogma YouTube channel and test them out. I'm a big fan of the Lake Country HGO, but it's been a while since I have tried something different. I want to ask, so those pads, just so the people know, they can be used on rotary and DA. But right now, I want to ask you, DA or rotary, which one is you prefer, or do you use both, and why?
Okay, so I like both. I use both, but I'm a rotary guy from way back. So late 90s, early 2000s is when I started with rotary, and I must admit there are some days you just go, rotary just isn't working for me. Something's not right. Sometimes it makes a big mess and it just doesn't finish out the way I want it to. But overall, the rotary is probably my number one favorite machine. Second would be force rotation, and third would be random orbital. I don't get you wrong, I love random orbital. I've been an early adopter of long throw or large stroke random orbital since 07 with the Dynabrade rotary to DA attachment or adapter, which I still have 3 of, using a flex stone grinder to power it, which is 1500 watts and 7,000 RPM maximum speed. So absolute monster of a machine. But the DA is, I think today, the thing about DA is that or random orbital is, it's very good for businesses, because in the last year and a half, I've been thinking basically most people, the detailers, are going to be doing nothing more most of the time than a one step on cars, because paints are getting so thin. So for one steps, DA is a no brainer. The only thing I don't like about DA is it's like when you've started with rotary and you have used that for so many years, using a DA, going to that feels like a backward step or a dumbed down machine. It isn't, but it just feels like it's not quite as the artisanry is not there. It's sort of very simple to use. Obviously, you can make mistakes with it and do a pretty bad job, but I love it for one-step polishing. I actually prefer these days, if I can, to DA correct and rotary finish, or rotary correct and finish. Because nothing finishes, in my view, like a rotary. Force rotation maybe in Rennie Doyle's hands, who I know quite well, probably could finish better than rotary in some cases. But ultimately, rotary is my preference. I mean,
so
DA is fantastic, but it's just what I find DA struggles with is really bad. Like I've got my Toyota Sleeker, 6th generation Sleeker, has got a bumper with a lot of sharp lines and curves and bends, and you just can't get the DA in there very easily. And you got to have like 2 or 3 different machines to be able to do the whole car. Whereas rotary, you just go, 1-inch pad, 6-inch pad, 9-inch pad, 4-inch pad, no problem. Tilt it, flat it, do it flat. You can just do almost anything. You could literally do almost any car with a rotary by itself if you had to, unless the paint was sticky and it was, some of the modern paints that aren't the greatest quality. Yeah. So
it just
generally,
feels, it just feels easier for you to use a rotary. It's more versatile.
Yeah.
But
more versatile.
Let me ask you, if I was coming to you with my daily driver, it was black, a little bit scratched up, but not too deep. And I want to ask you, Matt, do me like bring the paint to 90-95% and put a ceramic coating on it, and I'm giving you $1,200. Are you gonna use the the rotary, like cut with a
I,
rotary, finish with a DA? What's your plan?
well, first thing, of course, I've got to just work out what the paint likes, what the hardness is like, and if it's medium or medium hard or soft medium, I'll probably just use the DA. If it's harder, I'll probably go rotary. But I would probably generally, because it's black and because we're coating it, I would probably go either rotary first, DA finish, or just DA. That would be what I would do. So two-step
Okay.
DA or DA then rotary to finish. If for whatever reason the rotary just wouldn't finish right, I've probably done hologram free finishes hundreds of times out of my thousands of cars I've done, but I would probably go either 15 and or 21 millimeter orbit machine for the first step, and then go down to probably an 8 or 12 mil orbit to finish.
So
If I was doing
basically,
DA first.
depending on your test spot, you're gonna adjust at that point, right?
Yeah, correct.
So to get back to your pads or any pads for that matter,
Mm.
how would you say is the best way to clean them and extend the life of your pad?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, the pad washer from Lake Country and Brickguard have got one as well. They're a very, very good thing, especially the 4000. And I highly recommend it, especially if you're a production shop and you've got staff and you're doing multiple cars a day or more. It's a no-brainer to use that as you go. I'd still recommend using at least 2, 3, or 4 pads, maybe more. I used to recommend 6 to 12 per each step around the car if you're doing more than one. But ultimately, my recommendation is don't use them, change them often. If you haven't got a pad washer and you're just using air, compressed air, use a liquid, spray it, give it a rub, blow it with air, get rid of that residue into a big, deep bucket so that you're not throwing it all over the shop and making a mess. Change it after every panel, like literally do a section, blow it out, add more product, do the next section, repeat, do your last section, right? Then get rid of that pad, grab another one of the same type, do the next panel. If you've got a pad washer, you can probably go through the whole side of a car with one pad, and I would only change it if you were to notice that you're not getting as good a cut anymore or your finish quality is going down. I don't recommend soaking pads in a bucket or a tub of water and chemical or just water, because water over time will soften the firmness of the pad. Like leaving a car wash sponge in a 20-litre bucket of car wash soap all day at a dealership like they used to do. And it'd start off as a nice, dense sponge that would rebound real quick, and it becomes basically like a piece of melted licorice after it's been sitting in there for days, and just being refilled and never taken out of the water. It just breaks it down. So I don't recommend that. And obviously, don't use too much product. And if you're going to hand wash them, I don't recommend pressure washing, because you're basically applying a lot of water to that pad. And I know pads are a consumable item. I know that they have a certain lifespan, but ultimately you need to be getting as much value for money out of them by having them last longer. So I wouldn't pressure wash them. I wouldn't put them in a machine and give them a machine wash in a spin cycle. I would just spray it with cleaner, rub it, put it under some nice warm water, and just use your thumbs and just massage it, and then squeeze the water out like this, rather than wringing it, because some of the foam companies I've spoken to have said if you do that too much and you actually wring the foam too many times, you actually can crush the cells and make the foam more absorbent. That's what they've said. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they told me. So I don't wring the foam out, and I don't use harsh cleaners on them either, which makes them lose their color, and also it makes them go from being nice and sort of that brand new feel to feeling like cardboard. It
So an
just dries
APC
them
would
out.
work?
APC will work, obviously, but I'd make sure the dilution ratio is not too hot. It's fairly well diluted.
Okay.
But I recommend a dedicated pad cleaner, and if you can, I use a combination of a leather cleaner product and a rinseless kitchen cleaning product, actually, which is it's actually the only rinseless product I've ever seen from a household cleaning product, and that works really well because it's very low studs. You don't want to be creating a lot of studs when you're cleaning pads by hand, because then you've got to run a lot more water through it to actually get rid of those studs. And that means the more water exposure, the faster they soften.
Okay.
So yeah, soften. Yeah.
Do you use a pad washer yourself, or it's an option?
If I was still doing cars, I would buy one. I don't have one now because all I really do is testing for either manufacturers or myself, and also for the pad testing. I'm testing different interface materials and working out what grades to use of those to use for what foams and materials. So I'm not doing enough polishing really anymore to make it worthwhile. But anybody else, it's a good investment, especially if you've got multiple staff and you've got one guy on each side of the car. Buy two of them, and so the guy can just keep going. It makes them more efficient. So, yeah.
What's your take on the damp pad?
Damp pads? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel it change anything?
I have to be honest. I've been moistening my foam pads for decades, and probably not quite as much as what Ivan's doing when he's putting it in the pad washer first and then spinning it out. Mainly just spraying it with a pad lubricant, or it could be Ultimate No Rinse or another rinseless product at 1:50 or 1:75, which is a nice ratio. Well, McGuire's final inspection, I've still got some of that laying around, but I always moisten my foam because some compounds and polishes, they'll just based on their formulation, they will actually film up on you put the product on the pad, it's dry, put it on the surface, you turn the machine on, and you go, and it will film up and create that nice balance of oily and watery lubrication. So you've got that nice film there, which is always what you need, and it's no problem. But other ones just don't do that. They'll spread around on the surface, but they won't keep the pad sort of damp or moistened. And there's some products, especially some of the stronger compounds I've tested recently, where some of them will actually do a really good job of keeping the foam moist or the wool pad moist, and other ones just basically dry up on it and they just turn to clag and just leave big powdery bits of residue stuck in the pad, and they just don't work. So the Rupes DA compounds and polishes work quite well. They must have a lot of good oils in there. Could be paraffin oil, some other ingredient, could be naphtha or something else, and they just oil up perfectly. Whereas some other ones, they're just dry and they just don't work, or they're either greasy or they're really dry and dusty. You can modify that by using paraffin oil as a lubricant, one little drop, or a bit of Nanolax Optimizer, which is I have 5 liters of that, which is a viscosity changer and a filming improver. So I added about 20 mil of that into 3D 510 to make it more creamy and take it from being a wet paste where it looked like it had been separated in the bottle to a nice cream, and it spreads and films nice and works better. So you can do
Sounds
that
good.
too. But yeah, I do definitely prefer a damp foam pad. Wool pads, even I'll moisten those a bit, but microfiber generally doesn't really need too much. It's pretty much just product and go.
And we're gonna get into the compound and polishes really soon. But tell
Yeah.
me what's your take on the fact that the pad has more influence on the results than the polishing liquids or the compound?
Yeah, I guess I'm not a chemist. My mentor is a director of a global chemical
But my
company.
point
But
is,
yeah,
do you think that the pad has more influence on the liquid?
well, generally yes. I mean, I've used wool pads before, mainly superfine grade wool, which is about 15 to 18 micron. That's how it's graded. The lower number of the micron is, the more finer the wool is. So I've used wool with jeweling polish before and taken out dry spray on plastic bumpers. Painted plastic bumpers. I've used jeweling polish with wool and gotten some pretty good results. I mean, you're not going to get serious defect removal with that on metal panels, but the pad makes a huge difference. I mean, I remember a job I did in 2009 on a Holden VL Commodore, and it was painted in a modern Commodore color. It was Phantom Mica Black, and it was really well painted in Standox paint. And but the guy that painted it sanded it, and then he just did a runner and disappeared. And the other shop that got the car, he was using a black foam with a compound trying to correct it, and he wasn't getting anywhere. So the guy from Standox that I knew, which is Gino, called me and said, "Can you come out and look at this car?" And I had to use basically a tough buff black wool pad on a rotary with a compound to take out the big circular sanding marks the guy put in. So you can use the strongest compound in the world, but if you've got a pad that just hasn't got enough, hasn't got enough ability, you're just not going to get anywhere. So you can go away from the typical wool compound foam polish scenario and use really soft products with wool, and it actually makes the wool work better in terms of it keeps it moist, and it keeps it it prevents the wool pad fibers from being clogged up with residue, because the product is actually more creamy and runnier and more lubricated. But yeah, like you can't be going and trying to correct a really hammered car with a weak foam with the world's strongest compound or leveler that might be designed to take out 600 grit, like the old high temp Acra 400, which is like 400 grit leveler, like crystalline silica abrasive. It's just not going to do it. You have to have the pad. You need the foam pads. Obviously, work by they have like what I call a ripping action. The cells they do a lot of scrubbing, and they've got like a ripping action, whereas wool works by its sheer amount of surface area, and individual fibers doing their own thing and working away. You got more surface area, so you just have to have the right pad. You can't be using the wrong combination. If you've got a car that's hammered, you're not going to be using a finishing foam or a intermediate foam. It's not going to work.
But let's say we use your green pad, I can use like a finishing polish, and on a different part of the panel, I can use like a heavy cut and get much more different results despite using the same pad. By the way,
pretty much, yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so with the green one, I've tested it with compounds from. I haven't tested it with Fine Lab 850, but I've tested it with Merca Pro Iridium 450, which I tested for the company, which is probably the best one they've got, and much better than their Polar Shine range. It's basically a one-step sanding mark removal compound and polish in one step. So you remove the sanding marks and finish in one step. Used it with that. I've used it with obviously 3D1, 3D 520, combination of 3D1 and 520. Another brand, which is a new one, which is called Glisten here in Australia, which is a one-step. Their heavy cut compound, which is actually amazing in terms of it's not the strongest one out there, but it's very well lubricated, and it keeps the foam, when you use it on a foam pad, it keeps the foam moist, and it moves around the foam. It doesn't sit in one spot and build up and get all that claggy residue like I was saying before. So you can pretty much use it with almost anything. I'm not sure. I haven't used it with primer polishes yet. I'm thinking about trying the Labo Cosmetica Fiero with it and see what that does, because that's basically an adaptive abrasive polish that apparently is a primer polish that doesn't have any resin in it. So it's a different type of primer polish. So I haven't used it with Capro Essence and other things, but generally, compound to finishing polish, you shouldn't have an issue. And I'm not saying it's going to cut on hard paint. It's not going to do the job, obviously, that you need on badly scratched or very very swirled up heavy hard paint. But it's whatever you can whatever people are using the blue pad with for, use the green with it. Use the green with it, and it'll work. So, and I've used it with rotary. I've used it with random orbital and force rotation. And so far, I've had not one hologram on the rotary, and I've had every single time I've got a really good finish out of it. And obviously, you could go and refine with a HDO black or a buff and shine white or a yellow or something else, or who knows what, max shine red. But yeah, it's a damn good pad.
Okay, good. Interesting. Can't wait to try it. And I've seen you using the 3D1 product. Would you say that that is one of your favorite?
Yeah, and it is. And I was never really a big fan of 3D early on, but I did speak to Tunch Goran, or at least email him once or twice. And the reason why I actually fell in love with that product was the fact that In our family, we've got a 2005 Ford Territory, which is an Australian-made SUV, and basically it's based on the Falcon sedan platform, but it's just a bigger car. And that paint, for whatever reason, I think it's PPG paint mainly. For whatever reason, you use most polishes or compounds on that paint, no matter what you do prep wise, and no polish or compound will film up and go oily on the surface. It just won't spread. It just, like, you put it on the pad, you move it, and it just disappears. It's like it just won't film on there. There's something about it. But 3D1, I thought I would just buy a 250 ml bottle or try it. And as soon as I put it on the surface, it just oiled up and it just spreads and spreads and spreads. And I went, this is good. If it can work on this paint, it'll work on almost anything. And so far, it's proven really impressive. And I know it's not, the strongest compounding product out there, but it's probably the best single polish system, I would call it, since my mentor made System 1 and Expert way back in 96 and 2010, which is a waterborne burn mark proof polish system where you use one liquid all the way through. So
Okay.
basically, you couldn't put a burn mark in a panel with a foam pad if you were, say, rotary polishing and the product broke down and dried up and the pad was dry. It won't put a burn mark in it. So whereas the solvent-based ones, it just puts a big burn mark in it. You got to either sand it out or repaint the car, repaint the panel. So yeah, it's a great product, fantastic. Whoever come up with that and how they work out that formula, don't let them change it ever. It's brilliant.
Well, I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of the wipe off. In
Yes.
fact, I don't. It's a give and take when it comes to the oils. The oils allows you to polish for a long time and not worry about it,
Yeah.
not worry about the fact that you leave it on there. But
Yeah.
and my gripe with it as well is the fact that I can't see through it. So am I using too much?
Yeah.
Because I can't seem to see through it.
Winter is finally here. We have snow and ice. The city is putting the salts on the roads. That's a lot of minerals on your paint. Well, if you want to get rid of that at some point, well, look no further than DIY Detail Water Spot Remover, my favorite product when it comes to getting rid of minerals on your paint. So go check it out on the houseofrags.com and .ca. Use the code DOGMA to save 10%.
Okay, so firstly, obviously, I'm a big believer in, and this is before even talking to Ivan, I'm a big believer in wiping off polish with a damp towel and rinseless wash, or Maguire's Final Inspection, or Gliptone Body Lube, or something else. I don't like wiping dry with a towel because I used to find you get rid of most of it, and you put your inspection light on, and you're looking at it, and you go, oh, smear here, smear there, and there's all these oil. You wipe the towel one direction, there's an oily line. You wipe it the other way, and it's going the other direction. Whereas you just spray it, damp towel, gone. So it is a little bit more fiddly when it comes to wipe off, but there's a lot worse products out there than that as far as that goes. But as far as seeing through it, yeah, I must admit I'm sort of, I have a 5,000 lumens LED light that's only handheld. I haven't got a tripod light anymore. I haven't got halogens or modern things, so I can't see what I'm achieving when I'm polishing until I wipe it off and actually check it with the light. But I must admit, yeah, I do hate compounds and polishes today that don't they don't start transparent and stay transparent. The old stuff used to be cloudy white, and then you had the emulsion break happen, and it would go clear, and that's when you're getting close to finishing off, and you're just about done. And you literally, with Menzoner back in 02 to about 09 when I was using that, you couldn't tell what you got until you literally sprayed the thing down, wiped it, and then looked at it because it was so cloudy. Yeah.
So we're back from the technical difficulties. Can you explain to me what is the problem with the Velcro backing on our pads? I've been having issues since 2020. It seems like the Velcro backing is delaminating much easier than in the past from the brand I use. You already know what it is. So what caused,
Yes.
other than maybe heat? I'm not running my pads through that much heat. What caused the Velcro backing to delaminate from the pad?
And I'm not sure what they're doing, but generally, if people abuse them and use way too much pressure and create too much heat, yeah, you're going to definitely wear them faster. But I don't know exactly what's happening. But what I'm focusing on with mine is using at least 100 to 120 degrees or more temperature resistant adhesive. And if I can use non-hot melt adhesive and a better one, I will. Because I just, for as long as people have my pads, I want them to, even though they're a consumable item, I want them to last as long as possible. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's exactly going on and why. Maybe there's some kind of cost cutting thing going on. Maybe there isn't. But I think some people use pads and they just destroy them so quickly, and other people don't have a problem. I've got one customer who I'm going to be hopefully seeing how he does his polishing. He's only a few years in, but he's managed to somehow destroy a few of my green ones, claiming to be using only speed 3, speed 4. And I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong, but I have used mine in all sorts of ways for up to nearly 60 hours now, just 2 of them, and they're still fine. So I don't know what's going on, but I think it's all I can say. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. All I'm for sure know is that when it comes to me eventually having wool and other natural fibers and synthetic ones, I will have interfaces. I'll be using interface materials in the middle of those pads that is not polyurethane, because they can soften, they can warp, and they just don't last long enough. So I'll be using solvent, oil, and water proof closed cell material that's more like rubber, closer to rubber than foam, that will not allow any product to soak through that to reach the Velcro adhesive. And with adhesive that is so strong and so highly temperature rated, there's no way doing polishing that you could have that fail.
Okay. Great.
Because I refuse to sell. And if there's any issues people have with it, and there's enough of them, I will go, righto, I will tell the companies and I will say, righto, we've got to fix this. What do we do? And make sure the next generation, the next batch or whatever is even better. Now, I know that it means people buy less pads, maybe, but in the long run, they will keep buying them.
Yes,
that's
you can trust the brand, yeah, because with the Lake Country stuff, since they even changed the color of the backing, so right away it's a giveaway.
Yeah,
It used to be black or white or vice versa. Now they changed over. I think it used to be black, now it's white, and the white stuff does not last. Well, it has to be
and I'm a bit concerned. I'm a bit concerned as well with the Rupes NW series wool pads with the blue foam. Now, I'm not saying it's ever going to have an issue. I don't know. I haven't tried them yet. But looking at one, I thought that the interface foam material, I thought there was a bit too much gap between the cells, so the cell's size is bigger. I would rather use something that's a bit more dense and actually more cells per square inch than that, or I wouldn't even use it. I'd rather just go to some of these other closed cell rubber-like materials that just don't allow stuff to go through them, because it's going to retain it's going to transfer more power of the polisher through the machine to the paint, and it's going to allow the pad to keep its shape. So if you machine wash a pad and any of them that are just Velcro and foam or Velcro and wool, it will, on spin cycle, if it's fast enough, you'll open the lid and you'll go, oh, they're all bent over like friggin' half C-shaped, whereas mine will be laser straight, like a Car Pro gloss pad, dead friggin' straight because of the material, So that's the idea.
Are you a microfiber pad or a wool pad guy when it comes to the DA?
Well, okay, with DA, force rotational random orbital, I'm more of a wool guy. I must admit, though, I was an early adopter. I would say in the industry, to some degree, I was an early adopter to microfiber towels back in 2001. Although microfiber apparently was invented in Japan or Korea or something in like the 70s. But so I'm not saying I'm the earliest adopter, but I actually envisioned back in 2002 that we'd have microfiber polishing pads within 10 years, and 9 years later, there it was. So I like them, but I don't like the fact that the amount of heat they create. On certain paints, they work wonders, and other ones, they're just a micro-marring hazy mess. So as far as heat goes, the main issues with microfiber I have, the reason why I prefer wool is wool cuts cooler. It's a natural fiber. I prefer natural fibers. Synthetics always seem to create more heat, and microfiber picks up and hangs onto everything. So you've got the most amount of residue removal job to do with those pads. They just hang on to everything, and you're constantly either pad washing them or you're spraying them and blowing the crap out of them with compressed air all the time. I used to do it sometimes literally like after one pass or two passes doing a section, I would blow that pad out, add a fraction more, do another pass, and then stop. Because I had to blow out the residue because just so I would have no haze or micro-marring, because I was trying to finish with a microfiber on medium on certain paints, and I would achieve it really well by blowing it out halfway through the cycle. So its main downside is heat and residue buildup.
Yes.
I still like them. I don't love them though.
Yeah, I agree. I moved away myself as well. So Matt, we're getting close to the hour mark. Is there something
Yes.
you want to add?
Yeah, sure. Basically, I just want to repeat what I said on the previous podcast the other week, and that is that I'm doing this out of pure passion. I'm doing it to basically give back to people that have given me so much. I'm not some self-made guru that just knows everything and has just come up with all this stuff. Like I've learned from a lot of people, hundreds of people, maybe even more than that. And I just feel like I just want to give back to the industry and try and bring it something that's superior, better, the occasional game changer. Mostly, constant evolution, occasional revolution. And I'm just keen to try and bring anything I can that solves the industry's problems and helps them achieve their results they want to achieve easier, faster, and achieve even better results if I can. So yeah, that's the goal. And people can trust that anyone that buys my pads, they can ring me up any time and get technical support. I'm not saying I've got all the answers. I don't. But if there's anything I can help people with and they've got an issue on a car or a bike or a vehicle and they just don't know what to do, or they want to ask me, what do you think of this brand's products or whatever, I'm here for them. So yeah,
Good.
I'm very trustworthy. You would never find anybody else, or you'll never find anyone more passionate about it and who will always operate fairly, be priced competitively as best as possible, and want to give you the best and see everybody succeed. So
Good. You still.
mm,
So I want to let the audience know now if you're in Australia, you offer consultation. You still offer training, and do you still
yeah,
polish cars for people? I've seen some people asking you straight on Facebook on your post.
yeah, yeah,
Matt, can you come to? I want to come to your place, and I'll give you that much. You want to polish my car, Matt?
yeah. Yeah, people still ask me, and the reason I almost always say no is because I don't have insurance anymore, and in terms of that, and I don't have the right setup for it. I mean, my R&D mini lab, as I call it, is basically a triple garage, and it's got pad storage and liquids and machines and stuff everywhere. But it's not really. I haven't got the setup for it anymore. But I might say offer someone, say, look, I need to do some testing. I've run out of materials to test on, or the crash shop's not got anything for me right now. Are you okay with me sort of working on your car and using it as a test bed for this or that? To do certain things. But yeah, it's normally no, but
Okay.
yeah, it's I do enjoy it. But yeah, I love training. I love sharing knowledge, and I just consider myself. I consider myself a sponge. I've absorbed a lot of things over 30 years and 120,000 hours of real world detailing, and 60,000 hours of just researching everything. So I'm a sponge that people take, they squeeze things out of me, and I still absorb stuff. So I'm always learning, open mind all the time. I'm
Excellent.
just a sponge.
Very good. So, Matt, where can people reach out to you or find you? Plug away.
So you can find me on Instagram, Matt's Magic Detail Tech. Same thing on Facebook. There's a YouTube channel now as well. We've got to work on the banner and get that sorted. But there's plenty of educational articles on there. You can also go to my current website, which is sort of like it's there, but it's sort of unfinished and it's going to be going away. It's going to be replaced by the padking.com.au. But if you just look up mattsmagic.com.au, you can find a lot of information about me. You can see almost all of my podcasts that are on there. You can email me at mgibb@mattsmagic, mattsmagic.com.au, and ask me about my pads and what I'm working on, or any questions, queries, technical stuff. And yeah, that's the main thing. So Facebook, I'm even on LinkedIn as well. Just Matthew Gibb. Look me up. You'll see me there. Don't spend as much time on there as I used to, but still do look fairly often. So
Okay,
yeah, that's how you can find me. Yeah.
I will link down your YouTube channel I will link down your YouTube channel and probably your email. Anyway, people can go out there and type Matthew Gibb and find you really easily on IG and Facebook. And Matt, I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope to get you back at some point, and can't wait to try your pads and give my people and everyone my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm really looking forward to your feedback. Once I've got them, I'll send you some. And like I said, if there's any way you come up with any sort of constructive criticism or feedback, I'll use it and I'll work on making them better if I can. So it's not like it's, well, I didn't like it. Well, that's the end of that. Like, it's going to be, okay, tell me what you think. What's the problem? What improvements do you reckon you could come up with? And I'll go, okay, I'll go back to the factories and I'll go, right, let's see if we can do this or that, or maybe change firmness or density, cell size, shape, edge profiles, face profiles, you name it. So I know I can't please everybody. That's impossible, but I'll definitely do my best to make improvements where I can. Like I said before, constant evolution, occasional revolution.
Well, I think you've got what it takes to achieve a great pad, Matt. And on that note, I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Really enjoyed you. Thank you.